Breaking tonight, we are learning exclusive and dramatic new details about Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl's time in captivity, including reports that he became a Muslim and at one point declared himself a warrior for Islam. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. Just hours ago, Fox News was able to report on secret documents we have obtained detailing Sergeant Bergdahl's movements and his relationship with his captors. During this broadcast, we will investigate whether the White House knew about his alleged conversion to Islam and his declaration that he was now a jihadi. We will get analysis and new information from two well-connected retired generals, both of whom have been digging into this on their own. And then in a world exclusive, we have gathered together 6 members of Sergeant Bergdahl's platoon. This is the first time these guys have been together since they served in Afghanistan. And they have some fascinating insights on this report that I asked them about and on Sergeant Bergdahl's behavior. But we begin with our chief Washington correspondent, James Rosen, who broke this story just a short time ago. James?
Megyn, good evening. It appears there were times when Sergeant Bergdahl was treated very much like a hostage, indeed like an animal, and times when he and his captors exhibited affection for each other, even agreed on jihad. The documents show that as early as October 2009, just 3 months into Bergdahl's captivity, the Haqqani terrorist network began exploring a prisoner swap for him. But the reports show that Mullah Sangin, the Haqqani commander who oversaw the 200-man team that kept watch over Bergdahl, preferred ransom instead. Towards the end of his first year in captivity, Bergdahl made a break for it. Quoting the documents now, a Taliban commander in Waziristan advised that the soldier was moved from Dagan to Shawal, North Waziristan, in early June 2010. About the 17th of June 2010, the soldier managed to escape, but was recaptured after 5 days and taken back to Shawal, where he's being held by Sangin's guards. He is in ill health and has been collapsing, unquote. The terrorists were angry. Report number 728, quote, an Haqqani commander in North Waziristan advised that as of the 23rd of August 2010, the Mullah Sangin part of the Haqqani network, which holds the missing U.S. soldier, has begun to construct a metal cage in which to hold him. By August of 2012, however, the Pentagon's intelligence assets produced a truly shocking report. Once again, we quote, conditions for Bergdahl have greatly relaxed since the time of the escape. Bergdahl has converted to Islam and now describes himself as a mujahid, or warrior for Islam. Bergdahl enjoys a modicum of freedom and engages in target practice with the local mujahideen, firing AK-47s. Bergdahl is even allowed to carry a loaded gun on occasion. Bergdahl plays soccer with his guards, the report added. He appears to be well and happy and has a noticeable habit of laughing frequently and saying salam, Arabic for peace, repeatedly. Now, whether Bergdahl was feigning allegiance to survive, had fallen prey to Stockholm Syndrome, or really believed in jihad is impossible to say right now. That's all being investigated. These reports were produced by the Eclipse Group, a private intelligence firm that worked off of a contract issued by the Pentagon's Special Operations and Low Intensity Conflict Division. Megyn.
Incredible reporting, and you can check it all out on foxnews.com and James's column as well. James, thank you so much. James Rosen, everyone.
Thank you.
Well, we shared all of this new reporting with Sergeant Bergdahl's platoon members, and you will hear from them reacting in moments. But first, we want to bring in retired Lieutenant General Tom McInerney, who was Assistant Vice Chief of Staff of the Air Force and is a Fox News contributor, and General Jack Keane, who is a retired 4-star general who is Vice Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army and is a Fox News military analyst. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for being here with your response to this stunning report. General Keane, let me speak with you. What have you heard? I know you've been working your sources on this report.
Well, thank you, Megyn. Let me just say to those troops you got there with you, how much I appreciate their selfless service to this country and also the powerful and articulate testimony they've been provided these last few days as teammates of Sergeant Bergdahl and also trying to help us understand what took place. James Rosen's report that Eclipse provided under contract for 6 months and then many months after they continued to provide those reports, quite interesting in and of itself. From talking to a former senior intelligence officer, he read every one of those reports, and what James is reporting is consistent with what he had also read himself. Now, what we don't have, Megyn, and this gets into the intelligence business, every source that we have of intelligence, we try to confirm that with other sources. I believe some of that has been confirmed, that we don't know what that is, and because that is obviously classified. And the fact of the matter is, but even this information, as inflammatory and as explosive as it is, would have been shared with the entire National Command Authority and senior leaders of our government. It's indisputable that it would not be done. Sergeant Bergdahl was a very high intelligence collection target, with multiple agencies trying to gather intelligence on him, both in the country of Afghanistan, in Pakistan, and also throughout the United States using national resources. So this information would have been provided up the chain of command, certainly, to give people some insight as to what was taking place.
Wow. So before I go to General McInerney, do you believe, General Keane, that this would have gone all the way up to the Commander-in-Chief, this information about the conversion and the declaration that he's a warrior for Islam?
All I can tell you is that according to our procedures, this information would go up. It would be natural for it to go up. And frankly, given everybody's concern for it and was such a high priority target, people would be starving for the information anyway. So I would assume it did, although I can't verify that it did.
General McInerney?
Well, I agree with everything Jack has said. I think the fact is that if this was such a high-value target to the administration, that the president would make this exchange of 5 four-star equivalent high-value targets that we had captured, that he himself personally would have all this information, or he wouldn't make this decision. Now, we have the no man left behind saying, but it's no honorable man left behind, Megan. It isn't any man, and everybody knows that this man deserted. Now, the facts of what his collaboration was and how much a traitor was are still to be debated, and will be part of, or should be part of, an Article 32 investigation on the Uniform Code of Military Justice, in which they look in and take the appropriate action should he be court-martialed or not. Desertion in wartime, the penalty is death. And so I think it's very important with these things that are being looked at that the president had to have been aware of it, and why he made the decision for a buck sergeant to be traded for 5 four-star general equivalents absolutely amazes me. It has never happened in the history of America. No president has made such a swap. Wow.
Generals, I wish I had more time, but as I know you respect the service and the attendance of these 6 platoon members, so do I. So I need to get to them. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you, Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
This news on Sergeant Bergdahl's time in captivity just broke hours ago, right before I sat down to speak with the men who served with Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl in a 30-man platoon on a tiny outpost in the far reaches of eastern Afghanistan. In a world exclusive, this is the first time these men have been together since they left Afghanistan. Well, we are joined now by 6 members of Bowe Bergdahl's platoon. Guys, thank you all so much for being here. And I want to start with you, Evan Buetow, because you were the former sergeant, you were the team leader of the team that Bergdahl was on. What do you make of this latest reporting by James Rosen that he had converted to Islam, that he fraternized openly with his captors, and declared himself a warrior for Islam, at least by August of 2012?
Well, initially after he left, we knew that he had deserted. We knew that he was trying to find the Taliban, or trying to find someone who could speak English so he could talk to the Taliban. I mean, that was known to us at the time when we were on the ground right after he left.
But trying to find somebody who speaks English and can connect him with the Taliban could mean, you know, he had some God complex, he wanted to go solve the war. It doesn't necessarily mean he's getting ready to go collaborate with the enemy against the United States.
Exactly, and at this point, we're still going to have to listen to his side of the story at some point. I think that's right now, America wants to hear what he has to say.
Raise your hand if you think he deserted. Wow. Raise your hand if you have some question about whether he deserted. Wow. All right, go ahead, finish your point.
So, once he got with the Taliban and got connected with them at that point, what happened after that, we don't know. And we're going to have to wait for his answers. Now, what's coming out now about him converting to Islam and those things, we all heard those reports too. We were all still in the Army and everything.
When you think of him in captivity for 5 years, and you see that video of him coming home, you know, the Taliban released it. It's a propaganda piece, but nonetheless, it shows him. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you think this is what I would have done too, what I had to do to survive, even if it had involved saying I'd converted to Islam and took up arms against the United States? What do you guys think when you see that?
No, definitely. maybe 5 days. I would have done everything I had to do, cursing them, trying to escape, swinging on them, trying to steal a gun, shoot them. I'm not going to be a propaganda piece so my family can see me on the internet.
This is, you're Cody Fuller, you're a former specialist, and you were his roommate prior to deployment.
Yes, in Fort Richardson. Another thing I keep hearing is, what were his motives for deserting? It doesn't matter what his motives were. We all took an oath and we all had to abide by, orders, and you don't just leave your fellow Americans to join somebody else.
But explain that to us, because civilians who have never, as you guys did, volunteered our service and our lives potentially to protect America think, well, he was disillusioned, he was scared, he walked off. Help us understand what a cardinal sin is.
Afghanistan's not an easy time. Iraq's not an easy time. Anytime you're in a combat zone, it's not an easy time. Everybody's struggling.
You don't do it because it's easy. We're not there because it's easy. We're there to do a hard job, and that's what you signed up to do.
We all signed up by ourselves. We volunteered. And a draft didn't come through, nothing like that. So for him to sign an oath, and like what Cody said, he signed an oath to go do his job.
But some people, then he gets over there, it's a different story. He claimed in his email home to his dad, according to Rolling Stone, right before he deserted or left or whatever, that he had claimed he saw atrocities. He was very disillusioned with the Army. I mean, I'm putting it nicely what he said in that email.
No, just to add more to what they're saying. I mean, and yet we did sign on that line, and we all saw. I mean, not atrocities in some illegal thing that was going on that was trying to get covered up or anything, but you see your friends die. You see, and no one, unless you're there, you don't know what we've seen.
I can feel how strongly you feel about that. But to take it to collaboration, possible collaboration with the enemy, which is clearly something our James Rosen reported earlier this week that they have a CIA file on, and that there are many in the intel community who still believe that's a possibility, and they're investigating. And now the latest reporting about, shooting AK-47s with the Taliban, doing target practice with the Taliban. Clearly a relationship had developed. It seems hard to believe that an American soldier would do that unless he had gone mad or if he was trying to save his life.
He doesn't seem like a captive. He seems like someone who is potentially enjoying himself by
But wouldn't you do it if you're Josh Corneliuson, you were a medic in the platoon.
Correct.
Wouldn't you do it too if he tried to escape, they got him back, they put him in a cage for 5 days? Wouldn't you then do what you had to do to save your life?
You do everything you can to get back to your guys because you know that they care about you, you care about them. You would put your life down for them, and they're going to do the same thing for you.
So what's the best evidence you have that the night he went missing and ultimately wound up captured, he was doing it intentionally?
Okay. The day we found, or the morning that we found out he was missing, someone went to wake him up for his guard shift. He was not there. He was not in his tent. His weapon, his bulletproof vest, his sensitive items were left behind in the tent. We looked around the small OP we were on. It was the size of maybe 2 acres. Some wire, some areas where anyone could just walk right up. It wasn't like a structured base with walls and a gate. We had trucks fanned out. We had a couple bunkers. That was it. It only took a few minutes to look around and see that he was not there. And at that point, we knew nothing. We knew he was gone, and we had nothing else to go on. So we pushed a patrol out right away to go to the neighboring village that's right there to see if we could find somebody who could give us some information, a direction of travel if they saw anything. And we got out about 10 feet out of where we walked out, and 2 boys who were walking to school came up to us and said, "Hey, there was an American crawling through the weeds that way," and they pointed in
the direction, and that's the lead we followed because that was the only lead that we had.
And I was actually on the patrol too.
I was too.
They said he has no weapon with him, he has no gear with him. And if you know infantrymen, when we go on patrol, we're slammed with gear. I mean, there's no. So they said that it was weird. He was by himself. You guys are never by yourself.
You never go anywhere without your weapon.
You never go anywhere by yourself.
And he had a conversation, was it with you, Evan, as the leader, about what would happen to him if he took sensitive information, if he just happened to wander off and took sensitive
Well, he said, what would happen if my sensitive items went missing? Which is it's a rhetorical question for any soldier to ask, because no one doesn't know the answer to that question.
You're going to get in a whole lot of trouble.
I mean, everything shuts down. If a weapon goes missing, everything's going to shut down.
And how many people here had a conversation with him prior to the night he went missing about I might walk off and go into India someday, I might walk off into the mountains someday? Because I read a few of you did.
He said that to me. It was probably a week or 2 prior. We were on a different mission, got stuck up on top of a mountain for about a week or so. And just, sitting around waiting to do our guard shifts or whatever, talking to me, just, making jokes or whatever. And he says, I could just, see myself getting lost in these mountains. I was like, well, I couldn't see myself, here, but maybe in like Colorado or Alaska. So I wouldn't want to, be stuck in the mountains in this country personally.
Did he say anything to any of you guys though about I'm disillusioned with the war effort? I hate the Army.
He never said to me that he hated the Army. He came to me at one point and said that he was concerned and frustrated with the Army's our approach to the war and what we were doing. He said he was frustrated with that.
He was a little disappointed in the way he thought us going to war was going to be, we were going to go to war. It was gun battles every day. The war today is not that way. As he stated, Cody stated, it's all, we're trying to get hearts and minds, trying to get the right way to go. And he was very, it was discouraging to him.
Yeah. So when the Rolling Stone article came out, we were all kind of like, what? Because the emails...
Because it had these devastating quotes from him.
The emails he sent to his father were completely different from what he was saying to people in the platoon about what he felt about the war.
He wasn't talking about the horror of being an American.
No. He was wanting to do more aggressive stuff, and he was frustrated that we weren't allowed to do it.
Do you believe, because I know you have some anecdotal evidence that you feel, a couple of you feel the attacks got worse on your unit after he disappeared and so on?
I think everyone would agree that that's clear. And whether
that the attacks got worse. But how many of you believe that he had something to do with that? Raise your hand if you believe that.
It's hard to say. It's way too hard to say. There's way too many different things that can go with that, whether there's new people that came into the area, new bomb makers that came in, or if he shared information. That's so speculative.
So how is the White House reacting to this reporting tonight? Ed Henry is next on that, plus much more with our platoon. We asked about the political attacks against them and why they are speaking out now. Wait until you see what happened then.
When you're in a combat zone, it doesn't matter if you're left, right, independent, Jedi, whatever you want to be, okay? The only thing that matters is you have an American flag on your shoulder. And he's my brother, he's my brother, he's my brother. We're all going to ride together. We're all going to die together. And he, I guess, for whatever reason, I don't know how he felt about us, but we would all die for him.
Tonight's reports that Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl may have converted to Islam while in captivity and declared himself a warrior for Islam began breaking while the commander-in-chief was overseas. But just before they did break, he had a chance to weigh in on the case and suggested that this was just another phony scandal in Washington. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry just filed this report.
Good evening, Megan. The White House has been quiet so far about this new information about Bowe Bergdahl allegedly declaring jihad as early as 2010. We should note, in fairness, in part, that's because they want to try to sort out what exactly from these intelligence reports, what's true, what's not true. But they also may be hesitant to weigh in because, frankly, if in fact Bergdahl was declaring himself a warrior for Islam, that would run counter to the narrative that he served with honor and distinction and the like. Because there was also something else that contradicted the White House narrative today. You had Leon Panetta, not a Republican, but the former defense secretary in this administration, giving a speech where he said in earlier stages of the negotiations he opposed this prisoner swap because he was concerned that there was no guarantee that these 5 Taliban commanders would not go back out to the battlefield. That's a case that Republicans have been making. So look, in the president's defense at this news conference today, he noted that Bergdahl's health was deteriorating. The president had a chance to go in and save him. He seized it and says he makes no apologies for it. And aides tell me he's comfortable making that case to the American people. Where it's more difficult for the president is later in the news conference, he sort of dismissed this, that it's just people in Washington whipping it up as a controversy. His aides telling Politico it's just Obama haters stirring it up. The problem is, unlike IRS and Benghazi, where it was drawn along partisan lines, in this case, you have a lot of Democrats expressing outrage, just like the VA scandal, now with Bergdahl as well. That's why the White House is worried, Meg.
Ed Henry, thank you. Joining me with more, Chris Stirewalt, our Fox News digital politics editor. Back to the platoon in a minute. Chris, if they knew, if the White House knew what James is reporting tonight and General Jack Keane says he's confirmed with a senior source, why would they have done the rollout of this information the way they did?
Well, it would appear that, well, look, even if they just knew what has been reported in the Rolling Stone article, what is conventionally known about this, which we have to assume they did, you have to assume that some combination of arrogance and greed, greed for a polling bounce, greed for the restoration of momentum for a presidency that has been on the schneid for weeks with the VA, with setbacks overseas, with a litany of problems, and a bad election year for Democrats, one gets the sense that the reason that they overplayed their hand to this degree, the Rose Garden ceremony, served with honor and distinction, and all of that was that they wanted to make more out of this than it was. They were trying for a touchdown.
The reports are that they expected euphoria. Why would they expect euphoria if they knew? I mean, if they, at least the people underneath the president reportedly knew what we found out tonight. The guy was shooting AK-47s with the Taliban captives. He had converted to Islam. I get that this could be Stockholm syndrome, but you have to know this is going to be controversial.
Well, here's the thing. As you saw, Ed referenced the Politico piece, and we see in other pro-administration outlets today a narrative that says, no, this is because of the Republicans. I think it was on CNN tonight that Paul Begala said, well, if Obama cured cancer, the Republicans would attack him for it. So there's an effort here to delegitimize criticism of the president. But as the gentleman you talked to tonight are demonstrating, there are some pretty credible witnesses against the administration's narrative. I would submit that the real goal here, the real story in all of this, was the desire to repatriate those 5 enemy combatants, and the Bergdahl story was just a sort of a filigree on the top.
How dare they go after those guys? How dare they go after those platoon members? I'm going to talk to them about that next. Chris, thank you.
You bet.
I don't care where you stand on the story. You don't go after those guys. They took up arms in defense of the United States, and they just want to have their say. And yet they get attacked because they finally speak out. In moments, I will ask them about that in part 2 of my exclusive interview with the men who lived side by side with Bowe Bergdahl in Afghanistan before he was taken hostage. They respond to the allegation that they are swift boating and worse, and they will react to the administration suggesting that Bergdahl served with honor and distinction.
He's not a hero, and he did not serve with distinction, and that's a spit in the face to everyone who joined the Army and anyone who died looking for him. What do you think? What do you think their families
when
think?
You're in a
they don't get their loved one back like Bergdahl's family.
Are you? Well, in the days since the president announced the release of these 5 terror leaders in exchange for Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl, we have seen a growing number of voices from all across the political spectrum asking whether this deal was worth it. When the administration suggested Bergdahl, who was a hero, who served with, quote, distinction, members of his own platoon weighed in with concerns that he may have in fact deserted and pointed out that others may have died in the effort to rescue him. That did not go over well, apparently, in Washington. First, we heard the State Department suggesting those platoon members didn't know what they were talking about. Then White House aides started whispering to some favored reporters, describing this as swift boating, an attack aimed for some ugly political purpose. And then one of the more notable moments came this morning when a deputy secretary in Housing and Urban Development, used to be a VA official, got on Twitter and wrote, "Here's the thing about Bergdahl and the jump to conclusions, Mats. What if his platoon was long on psychopaths and short on leadership?" Psychopaths? Joining me again, 6 former members of Bergdahl's platoon. Unbelievable. So now, let's just set this up. It's gone from they told you couldn't talk, then you decided to talk when they started to say their version, and now that you've started to talk, you've got administration figures calling you swift boaters and psychopaths. Who would like to take that?
Frankly, I'm kind of flattered that they're actually acknowledging us. Yeah. It shows that we're kind of making a point here. Yeah. And that's very important to what we're trying to portray, our message. But the jump to conclusion to say that he was directly responsible for those deaths, that's...
Of the guys who were looking for him.
I need a little bit more evidence to actually say that.
Okay, you won't go that far. Does anybody go that far, that he caused the deaths of those who were looking for him?
Well, they portrayed, what is it, 6? Right after the news broke, 6 people from our whole battalion. They weren't, only 2 were in our company, so we don't know about the other 4.
Okay.
Now, at the same time, they all were, when Bergdahl left, and we knew that he then was trying to find someone who spoke English so he could talk to the Taliban, and we knew that he was then trying to make connections with them. I mean, the mission changed. I mean, just Bergdahl leaving, the whole mission changed. It went from, our hearts and minds, just going to villages, trying to find the Taliban and helping people, to a search. We got to search for this guy.
This is a big deal.
It changed everything. I mean, so every mission then was slated on, okay, we got intel that he might be here. Let's go over there and check it out. For what, 2 months, maybe more, just nonstop. 60
days of just going.
And does the stress level go up for you guys?
Oh, yeah. You don't get a shower. You don't get to go send an email.
Yeah, you don't. You're on the big post for maybe 1 hour, and so you get to choose if you want a hot meal, if you want a shower. If you want to go to the PX and get whatever you want there, and then you have to roll out, and you don't know when you're going to come back. If it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks.
When you saw him get onto the helicopter the other day, you saw that video. Do you remember that? How did you feel when you saw that?
When I saw him, I said, "Wow, he looks pretty good." We looked a lot worse than that when we were out there looking for him. I mean, it was kind of funny to me. And then after watching the whole video, it was a little uneventful. They just handed him over, but them saying that. You heard that he was sickly and stuff. He didn't appear to be too sickly to me.
What really made me angry, though, was when I saw it on the news yesterday. Well, they played the audio from the people that handed him off, and they said that they were disappointed that they took him off so quickly because they didn't get to shake his hand and say goodbye. Well, if I was held in captivity for 5 years, the last thing I want to do is talk to somebody or shake their hand or laugh with them or joke or anything like that. I want to get out of there as fast as I can. And if I was in captivity, nobody's going to be saying, well, I want to say goodbye to him, because I'd probably be dead anyway.
I want to ask you, though, about with the attacks on you, because you were asked by the Army to sign the non-disclosures, and you guys are servicemen. You do what you're asked, so you signed them, right? What made you speak out? Was there something that upset you?
Well, we were told, you can't talk. And the NDAs, some people that haven't spoken out, they signed some official ones. Stuff we signed was more of like a gag order. You can't talk about where you're in. Probably shouldn't talk about it until he gets home.
So why'd you do it? Why did you feel the need to speak out now?
The truth needs to come out.
He's not a hero.
It's just exactly what happened, why it happened, and
what did you think when you saw the president with his parents in the Rose Garden?
I don't even know what to think on that. I mean,
we were on the Army, so
it was hard to watch that. It was hard. I had to leave the room.
Yeah.
Wow.
We were all in the Army, and if he makes a mistake, if Matt makes a mistake, they do something that violates the military justice code, they get held accountable, whether it be a court-martial, field grade Article 15, company Article 15, whatever that may be, they get held accountable. It's not fair to the men that have served this nation honorably and done the right thing, made mistakes maybe, got punished for it, came back from it and did even bigger and greater things, to have him do something completely wrong, which is desertion, and come back labeled as a hero and not be punished at all. What
do you make, because we talked before the segment started about Susan Rice saying he served with honor and distinction.
Yeah.
These guys are not big fans of that comment. Well, I'll synopsize it this way. But then Jay Carney was asked to explain that, and here's what he said.
Sergeant Bergdahl put on the uniform of the United States voluntarily and went to war for the United States voluntarily. That takes honor, and it is a mark of distinction.
Okay.
He also voluntarily left as well, though. He voluntarily left us all behind to go do his own thing.
And I've known a lot of people in the Army that have signed the dotted line and came in, and they didn't serve with honor. So just because you signed the dotted line, you put on a uniform, doesn't mean that you've done anything yet. It doesn't mean that you've proved anything or shown that you have honor or done anything until you actually do something.
But even at the time, I mean, signing on that dotted line, knowing what you're getting yourself into, and then joining the military, knowing you're going to deploy, that's an honorable thing right off the bat, and that's great, and it was true at the time for him. But then he walked away in the middle of Afghanistan, on the farthest front lines you could be on, to go seek out the Taliban.
You feel that was an affront to you, that to say that his service was with honor and distinction?
It's saying that that's honorable. Saying that walking away, and whatever his agenda was in trying to connect with the Taliban, explain to me how that's honorable. I mean,
they seem to be trying to predate it.
I mean, that's spitting in the face to everyone who deployed, came back.
That's every that goes for every service member.
Oh, yeah. Not even us or his company. Every single person that was in the military.
Well, what do you make of these reports now that some White House aides are saying, you guys are swift boaters, and even the president and his top aides are now saying that anybody complaining about this, they're being political. That this is a political.
Politics out of this. Yeah, we've made it completely clear that and this is the most I think we've ever talked about it, this is not about politics. This is about the fact that Bergdahl walked away from us, went to try to find the Taliban, and we know that for a fact, and we were all there. And there's not one person you could find who would say that they don't believe that, at least who was there. That is clear as day, and that's what we're trying to put out there. He's not a hero, and he did not serve with distinction, and that's a spit in the face to everyone who joined the Army and anyone who died looking for him. What do you think? What do you think their families think? They don't get their loved one back like Bergdahl's family.
Are you guys Republicans, Democrats? Are you political people?
Here's the thing: when you're in a combat zone, it doesn't matter if you're left, right, independent, Jedi, whatever you want to be. Okay, the only thing that matters is you have an American flag on your shoulder. And he's my brother, he's my brother, he's my brother. We're all going to ride together. We're all going to die together. And he, I guess, for whatever reason, I don't know how he felt about us, but we would all die for him. And he left.
And I considered him my really good friend. And that kind of hit me a little bit harder than maybe some of the other guys. But it all hit us hard because he was one of ours.
If you could see him today, what would you say to him?
I would just ask him why.
Yeah, I think that's every question. We've all, I think, collectively, and I know I have, because as being his team leader, I mean, he walks away, and we've never got closure on any of this. Yeah. We have no idea why he did it, and all we want to know is why, because we've had enough time to deal with our feelings about it. I don't think any of us are angry at him, but we need closure. Everybody needs closure at this point, and now that it's this big, I mean, all of America needs closure. It's not just the people who were there.
Raise your hand if you would like to see him court-martialed and see a trial. Wow.
And at the same time, just getting his perspective and what he's going to say now and what he thought. Okay, well, you don't go up to a murderer and ask him, oh, did you do it? Oh, well, no, I didn't. Oh, okay, then you're free to go.
Yeah. A lot of people have said that. They've said, how can you say he deserted without getting his testimonial, his perspective on it?
So if he says, no, I didn't desert, are they going to say, oh, look, all those guys were just lying?
So what about all the classified files, sworn statements, original investigation, all these files that are classified that nobody can even see? Well, why can't they bring those to the public light?
Is there anything he could say at this point that would persuade you he did not desert?
No. There's nothing he could say.
Nothing.
Absolutely. He left ROP, he left brothers, soldiers, leadership. He left the country to go seek out the Taliban.
Yeah, he still is a U.S. citizen, and he hasn't been discharged from the Army, so he still is a U.S. soldier. I still think that he does deserve due process.
Yeah, we all agree with that.
And if that investigation leads to a court-martial, then so be it.
That's our main point, is we want him to
be held accountable for everything that he's done.
He needs to answer for what he did.
And it's not like the evidence is so circumstantial you can't do anything or have a trial.
Wow. And don't miss the last part of my exclusive interview with Sergeant Bergdahl's former platoon members. I will ask them, and we'll talk about whether trading terrorists for Bergdahl was worth it. Do you believe that this prisoner swap was worth it? Do you agree with the prisoner swap? Raise your hand if you do. Wow. Not one of you supports it. Why not?
Those are very bad people. They're not an office clerk. They don't, just because they go away for a while, they're not going to stop what they're doing. They continue to do it, and they will always continue to do what they do.
And they talked about what they've told their own families they would have done had they been in Bergdahl's position. The warnings they gave their own families if they had been taken captive, and what they told their families to expect, and what they think Mr. Bergdahl's family should have expected. We'll show that to you tomorrow night and a lot more from these soldiers. Again, 9 p.m. Eastern. Set your DVR now, only right here on the Fox News Channel and the Kelly File. Well, we have been reporting these breaking details tonight on these secret documents detailing Sergeant Bergdahl's time in captivity. We will ask Senator Marco Rubio about that next. Back now to our top story and breaking details tonight on these secret documents that suggest Sergeant Bergdahl had converted to Islam and enjoyed what seemed to be a friendly relationship with his captors during his captivity. Was the Senate told about this in their classified briefing last night? Marco Rubio is a Florida Republican and member of the Senate's Foreign Relations and Intelligence Committee. Senator, good of you to be here.
Thank you.
Is this something that's been discussed and well known?
Well, I want to be informative and responsive. I want to be careful because both as a member of the Intelligence Committee and then last night we've been made aware of classified information. But let me just say that the substance of this report that you've reported I've asked questions that are specifically on point, and the answers that I got directly contradict or dispute what you have been reporting this evening. So clearly, if this happens to be true, we've got a very serious problem with the administration misleading members of Congress, because the question that I asked was right on point with what you're reporting here tonight.
Because it's also been reported, and our James Rosen's been leading the way on this earlier this week, that the CIA has a major file on Bergdahl, that they've been investigating it, and that many in the intel community have serious concerns about whether he did actually collaborate in some way with the Taliban. And you know, if he did, you can understand the reasons why that'll all be discussed when he gets back, right? I mean, Stockholm Syndrome, to try to save his own life, what was it? But it would certainly raise the specter for us in watching him when he comes back, right? Yeah. And it would also perhaps change the equation on, you know, is it worth it?
Well, let me just say, again, I have asked questions specifically on point. In essence, the answer that I got directly contradicts what you're reporting tonight. So if this turns out to be true, the administration has lied not just to me, but to the other members that were present at those hearings. As far as the equation is concerned, irrespective of this reporting, and we have a process within the military to deal with all of this, and I imagine that will move forward, you've just released 5 extremely dangerous people who, in my opinion, and the opinion of all the assessments I have seen, will rejoin the battlefield. At least 4 shortly will be back involved in the fight against America and our allies.
But the president says we leave no man behind. And, you know, I think even if Americans have mixed feelings about Bowe Bergdahl, and many believe he deserted his platoon mates, you have to ask whether we should have left him there to rot just because he made a terrible decision.
Well, I think the president should have done everything possible to get him back, short of endangering the national security of the United States, and short of endangering the lives of other servicemen and women by the thousands that are still out there serving us, who have now become attractive or more attractive targets for the Taliban, for the Haqqani network, and for any other
enemy of the United States. The Taliban spoke out today to Time magazine and said that they are encouraged now to take more hostages, given how this has worked out. But why do you think the president did it? Knowing at least what he knew about these 5 terrorists and how dangerous they were, because that's been well documented. Why did he do it?
I have no doubt why they did it. Beyond the issue of trying to get this gentleman returned to his family, beyond that, I am convinced that this was part of an overall messaging strategy for domestic consumption last week. If you recall, he traveled to Afghanistan on Monday, which was fine. That's appropriate for the president to do. Then he gave his speech at West Point, talking about how the war in Afghanistan was over. And then this was supposed to be what was going to cap off the week, in the hopes of reinvigorating the president's image domestically as a great leader.
They misread the public on this one.
They sure did.
Senator, good to see you.
Thank you.
Tomorrow night, I asked the infantrymen whether this prisoner swap was worth it.
I think we probably have all, after this happened, talked to our families and said, look, if that was me, you can go ahead and leave me there, because I signed on the line to die for my country.
Yep.
There's a sample of how some feel. The full exchange tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern. Meantime, go to facebook.com/The Kelly File. Follow me on Twitter @Megyn Kelly. Let me know what you think. I'm Megyn Kelly. Thanks for watching.